Good afternoon, colleagues. Thank you so much. I'm sure more people will be joining us. I look forward to this session because I know it's a little bit different than what we've had before. But before we start with the session, I just want to confirm that you can see my screen. Just a thumbs up would be appreciated. Thank you so much. I do have, I can see the window with the comments and everything, so I would really appreciate it if you do have a question, please post it in the chat. And if you agree with something, please react. So today we are doing the session. It's brand new. This is the first time we are doing this. PAIA for researchers. And I do want to thank firstly Sinoza and Fadwa for organizing this from the Division for Research Development. And to give you some just background of why I am here, I'm from the Center for Information Governance. My name is Melandi, and I work with Gerald Toy. He's our Deputy Information Officer. I know some of you might have seen my face before because I know I've seen some of your faces before. So that's where we are from. Our division has a brand new name, which is at the bottom of my presentation. I'm not going to pretend to be able to remember it already because it was literally just changed yesterday. So you guys are the first ones to publicly see it. And yeah, then before we jump into the rest of this, I just wanted to note that this is a recording. Please note anything I do say could change with regulation changing. So this recording would only be valid, obviously, or accurate today. And then afterwards, I will be asking Fadwa and them for the attendance register. This is for regulatory requirements because we do have to have proof of training and awareness that we do for PAPI and PAIA to the information regulator. And with that, let's jump into the next parts. Guys, so let's do the definition first because that gives us a good basic of where we have to start, good base. To give effect to the constitutional right of access to any information held by the state and any information that is held by another person and that is required for the exercise of protection of any rights. Okay, so we all know of PAIA as this, it's like the American freedom of access to information. It's globally a known or an accepted type of regulation. Ours is just has a different name. The other names could be access to information, and the other one is the GDPR, General Data Protection Regulation. So this is not a unique regulation within South Africa. So if you do work with international parties, this is something that is also translatable internationally. So to just give you a view of where you are within this regulation and the reason why we are here today, because I know this just sounds so far-fetched. I mean, PAIA for researchers, come on, another regulation you want to dump on researchers, more responsibility researchers need to know about. But this is we're not giving you more responsibility. We just want to empower you with this information that it can provide you, and obviously with our services that we can help you. So the Promotion to Access of Information Act has two components. It is applicable to public and private bodies. So why I want to stop on this with one specific slide is public is your involvement with the university as a public entity, and it could be any public entity within our country. Private could be you as an individual. It could be you as a lecturer at SU. It could be you as a researcher in an agreement, or it could be just overall as your research profile could count under a private body. And why we want to discuss PAIA is, firstly, we want you to understand what is our processes within the university, because then that probably will give you an insight of what it would be outside of the university if you do apply for information at other entities. And then the other part is to protect yourself, because you have to understand that even as a representative of SU, as a researcher, as a lecturer, as an individual, uh, anyone, not anyone, people are allowed to do a PAIA request on your data, your lecture notes, your attendance registers, your work, your emails, even in your professional capacity as well as private capacity. So this is not just something that the university gets PAIA requests and that doesn't really consider me. It actually does. We have not seen a lot of these applications, but we do want to empower you on what if this happens. Where do you direct them to? How do you protect yourself from having to do a lot of work? Because it really is a lot of work. I'll give you a better explanation later on. And yeah, then also just to understand of how the university could help you within this process. So in SU specifically, our SU PAIA manual has this, as I just took a screen grab from this. So this is information that we have publicly available already. So what you can, how this could apply to you is you can follow other PAIA manuals, which is all public entities are supposed to have a PAIA manual, where they specify which records are already public or could be available upon request, which is awesome because sometimes you don't even necessarily have to go through the PAIA process, which could be a very, very long process. The first reply needs to be within 30 days. So that's already a 4-week delay in your research process. So this is just an example of what it could be out there, but also an example of what is already public within our university, what we see as public information of our university. If you're doing research on our university, there it is, and it is already available on websites. And if it is not, like we say with archival records, it is available upon request. Okay. So then the second part of this is for SU specifically is categories of records held by the university that may be requested in terms of PAIA. So we went through all the trouble and I have had a look at all the different categories of information in collaboration with a lot of parties. And these are the categories of information that may be requested under PAIA. Once again, I'm not saying you will apply to the university for information, but this could be a type of information that's in PAIA manuals for other companies that you could be applying to. For example, I know that within accounting, sometimes they do use public entities information to do some research. That is an example of where they could look, maybe it is already public, or they can come here and see, okay, but they do say they would provide this, so let me go through the PAIA route. Okay. So it's interesting, a few of these, but the two that was for me, oh my goodness, individual students or individual personnel. Those were interesting. And then relevant to you is research, scientific and technical records, which could also be requested. And then all the other uh, what do you call it, like board meetings and reports and so on. Okay, so the types of requests we get, but also publicly, which is more common type of requests, is it could come from the individual. For example, like we just said, information on a staff member. We get a few requests of where a person is deceased and the family staying behind would like to access all the information that they have here. Or the other type of request is media investigations. So this one, obviously, like you know, Wilgenhof is a hot topic now, so we get a lot of those. And that also goes hand in hand with political parties where they would ask information. It could be demographic information, it could be just information on how many people we have at the university, or political affiliations. They would like to know with the media investigations, what does the report say? What's the actual meeting minutes? And then NGOs also, and the South African History Archive, SAHA, they have some PAIA requests that they also submit. So this is not just one level of submissions. This is a little bit of everything. It could be from the individual to the data to the archival information to something that's there for public protection or for public interest. So it's a little bit of everywhere. So each case obviously has to go on its own merit. So there's no way where we can say everyone could get access to everything, or that we can say everyone should make everything public, because that is not viable. So here we have the considerations when receiving an application. So there's a lot, like a lot. Each chapter, I had to go study this little book, the entire regulation. I think there's about 3 parts with different considerations when you get a request in different capacities. So these are ones which I feel was most could be applicable to the researcher, and could also be applicable to the individual. It is applicable to our university, definitely, because these are the ones that we use most often. So the first one is effective, efficient, and good governance. Is this a reasonable request in terms of do we have the time to spend on this? Are they literally asking for all the meeting minutes in the entire university, or could we narrow that down to only the Wilgenhof meetings that happened, or to only this faculty meetings that happened? The second one is commercial confidentiality. Is this absolutely in the interest of the university to give this out? What's the different controls we have to put in place to ensure confidentiality? The third one is the protection of privacy. So the PAIA Act does not actually stand alone. It links to so many other acts. And one of it is POPI. And in this one, this is where I need to explain how much work goes into this. So if we get a request for meeting minutes, we have to go through all the meeting minutes. We have to note all the names mentioned, all the personal identifiers mentioned. We have to go get consent from each of those people mentioned in the minutes to say that, yes, we are allowed to actually share that information. No, we should redact that information. That's a very long consultative process. Different consents, levels of consents, different levels of filtering and editing. An even more complicated one is where we have meetings that's recorded, minutes that's approved, but the recording was never deleted. So now we have the issue of the recordings being requested, which has happened many times before. And those recordings are then multiple people in the meeting. And now you have to know that if we go get consent and one person says, sorry, we don't give you consent, we have to edit those little sections where that person is speaking out the audio. We have to go edit their face out. It's just a very, very intensive process. And why I'm saying this is because this could relate to your data. Do you have interviews that's recorded? Do you have information that's over their retention schedule? Yeah, we'll get to the tips for how you can protect yourself. Then the safety of persons. Could this implicate anyone? And that links to the last one as well, is the information part of court or criminal proceedings. That falls under a whole different regulation of having to disclose that and the limits of where it could be disclosed or where not. And then almost at the end, how to protect your information and your data subjects. Because as researchers, you're not only responsible for your information, you are responsible to protect the data subjects, to protect your participants, and to ensure that your research data is protected. How could we do this? And this is the point of my entire presentation. All the rest was just groundwork to set you up to understand this part of the why this is necessary for you to know. So the first one is minimality. Only collect what is absolutely necessary. I cannot reiterate this one enough. This is something that in the institutional permission process we look at. This is something in ethics that they look at. This is something that you as a researcher need to consider. As part of the GDPR, which is the PAIA and PAIA equivalent in Europe, is you have to actually disclose or write down specifically for each little piece of information. If you're collecting a name, collecting a surname, collecting a date, collecting a personal opinion, each question that you're asking, collecting personal opinions, has to have a summary of why that question is absolutely necessary and links to your research outcome. So this is something to consider when you do research. Maybe this is an activity you can do yourself. Maybe this is an activity in retrospect you can do and start thinking when you move forward about, is this absolutely necessary? Then the next one is retention guidelines. I know there's very strict retention guidelines, and I know that you work in different spaces of retention guidelines. We have the university retention guidelines, then we have the RDM retention plans or data management plans. So I understand that there's also contracts that could be implicate retention guidelines. With this one, I understand 5 years, 10 years, absolutely. But then make sure you do delete it and make sure you only retain what is specified. If you have that interview, you have recorded it, you have transcribed it, you got confirmation from the participant that they agree with the transcription, or however your data management process is flowing, you should consider deleting that recording if that applies to your retention schedule or your data management plan. And within the university, storage is a big issue. So is it really a wise plan to want to keep the recordings forever and ever? Is it safe for you to bank on having those recordings safe forever? And this is not a viable thing, because I know even in the university, recordings are now deleted after about 6 weeks. So is it really safe? Okay, so that's the second thing. Then the third one is collect data anonymously, if possible, or anonymize as early as possible in the process. Okay, so this would also ensure that if the PAIA request comes while you are still busy with the research process, but it's already anonymized, there's a lot shorter time that we have to spend on this, anonymizing the information or getting the extra consent or going the extra mile to ensure that all data subjects are protected. And we have to consider we, including you, deal with sometimes extremely sensitive information. We deal with medical information. We deal with racial information, political persuasions. We could deal with very sensitive information. And once a PAIA request comes in, that is something that you have to take the responsibility to protect. And I don't think it is asking too much to consider anonymizing the information and work it into your data management plan to say that the moment you get it, let's say 2 weeks, it'll be anonymized. However you work with your plan, just consider moving this forward into your data management plan. Then the fourth one, make it publicly accessible. I know this is part of the profile of a researcher to have to promote open access research, promote open access data, and it is just I was asking this morning. I asked Kabiso, the manager of the research data management program, and I said, so what's the return on investment for researchers with this? And he said it's absolutely for open access because we are in a public university. It's most likely publicly funded research, and that should be made publicly available. So in the university, we have Sun Scholar, where you can upload your data. The rule is obviously anonymized data. So you could use Sun Scholar. You can contact our RD. I think it's literally rdm@sun.ac.za. You can contact and they'll work with you on a research data management project and help you with Sun Scholar, where you also get some free storage, which is storage you can always also protect and later make publicly available once you're comfortable with it. And then the last one, ask for advice. I'll set up our contact details now. Here it is. Our website is just /privacy, so that's very easy to remember. It's also in Afrikaans available /privaatheid. And then we have two little buttons that I want you to consider here. It's also on the Stellenbosch University Service Desk under information governance. We have requests for engagement, and then we have promotion to access of information to Information Act. Sometimes requests come in through institutional permission applications or just random emails flowing around, and the process would require a more intensive consultation process with legal, with some other parties, let's say, for example, with finance or people that we believe could be touched by the information that's requested, and then we'll refer you to go through our PAIA process, because the PAIA process is a more consultative process where we, like I said, sometimes have to consult different people. With institutional permission, if you already have an agreement to get access to that information within the university, we won't stop you. But like I said, with PAIA, there's different considerations. Then requests for engagement, that's if you would like to speak to our Deputy Information Officer, if you need some advice on applying outside of our institution for access to information, because this just opens up so much more information for researchers to access, to know that there's a way for you to access this information. And then lastly, I uploaded or I added a few extra links. As academics, I know you appreciate some extra reading material or just to understand exactly where it comes from. So we have the Act, which I linked here, and then we have the Information Regulator PAIA Guide, where they unpack the Act a little more into how to apply it. Then we have the PAIA Manual, which is our university PAIA Manual, step-by-step explanation of how it works, which form to complete for what, how long it takes. Also consider that there's some fees applicable, not just in our university, for all public entities with PAIA manuals, they can apply a fee. The SunScholar data, that's just a quick link to understand a little more about SunScholar data, and Research Data Management Plan, also a quick link there to understand what it could be and how they could help you. Okay, I'm going to take a sip and then I'm going to give you all a moment to ask questions. I am done. Any questions? I hope there's no questions because you could understand everything and not that I thought this is understandable and maybe it is not or applicable and maybe it is not. We really saw this as an opportunity to help you understand that all data you are sitting on is accessible and just to consider um, what you could do with that data. Thank you, Tanya, for that comment. I appreciate it. I know this is a little out of the box training than we usually do. We just like I said, saw this as a possible thing that could affect you, and we want you guys to be informed and empowered when you do get these requests. And if there is a PAIA request that comes to you, please refer it to us. It should not go to you directly. We'll help you with this process. If someone is looking to access your information and your data, we will help you through the process. We have a university process that we have to follow through that. Anyone else? I see there's someone writing a comment. Thank you, very useful. I appreciate that, Doctor. Okay, that was a little shorter than I had time for. I always like to leave a little extra time for questions, but not this long. Um, but thank you very much. If you do have questions, please feel free to email us afterwards. My email address is malandi@sun.ac.za. I'll just add it here in the chat. And if this ever comes up in your area, please feel free to ask us to help you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Sinazo. Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. Pat on the back for you for spending time and investing in yourself. Thank you. Goodbye.